Cassidy Morgan, 32, stared at her phone in disbelief. After 6 years of silence, her mother's name flashed on the screen. The same mother who hadn't bothered to attend her wedding was now calling because of a Facebook photo featuring Cassidy's new Tesla. Blood rushed to her face as memories of abandonment resurfaced. This wasn't just about a car. This was about years of conditional love suddenly reappearing when money entered the picture. Hey everyone! Before I dive into this story that changed my entire perspective on family loyalty, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. If this family drama already sounds familiar, give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for the revenge that took 6 years to plan but only seconds to execute. Family betrayal cuts deep, but karma cuts deeper. Growing up in the suburbs of Boston, Cassidy Morgan believed she was living the American dream. Her father Thomas was a respected accountant at a mid-sized firm, while her mother Elizabeth taught piano lessons from their colonial-style home. From the outside, they appeared to be the picture-perfect family. Weekend barbecues, matching Christmas sweaters, and framed honor roll certificates proudly displayed in the living room. Elizabeth would often tell neighbors that family always came first, a mantra she repeated at every PTA meeting and neighborhood gathering. Cassidy excelled in school, driven by her mother's expectations of perfection. Elizabeth had carefully crafted her daughter's path: prestigious college, respectable career, and marriage to someone from their social circle. Every achievement was measured not by Cassidy's happiness but by how it reflected on the family reputation. Thomas quietly supported this vision, never contradicting his wife's ambitions for their only child. "A Morgan never settles for second best," Elizabeth would say whenever Cassidy brought home anything less than an A+. This pressure created a complicated dynamic. Cassidy craved her parents' approval while simultaneously resenting their conditional love. The first cracks in this facade appeared during Cassidy's sophomore year at Boston University. She had chosen to major in business rather than pre-med, a decision that triggered weeks of cold treatment from Elizabeth. Thomas, as usual, remained neutral, unwilling to challenge the family hierarchy. The message was clear: parental love was something to be earned, not freely given. Despite this tension, Cassidy maintained the peace by excelling in her business studies. She graduated with honors, securing a position at a growing tech startup in Boston. Her parents proudly displayed her graduation photos but subtly reminded her that a corporate position at one of Boston's established financial institutions would have been preferable. "It's a good start," Thomas had said at her graduation dinner, his faint praise underscoring the underlying disappointment. At 25, Cassidy met Jason Turner at a technology conference. Jason was brilliant, ambitious, and kind, everything Cassidy admired. He also came from a middle-class background in Michigan, worked at a competing tech company, and had no connections to her parents' social circle. When she brought him home for Christmas, Elizabeth's disapproval was evident in her tight smiles and pointed questions about his family background. "He seems nice enough," Elizabeth said afterward in a tone that suggested the opposite. "But I always pictured you with someone more established. Perhaps Robert Whitman's son. He's finishing his residency next year." The relationship with Jason progressed despite her parents' lukewarm reception. When he proposed a year later, Cassidy accepted without hesitation. She called her parents immediately, expecting at least a semblance of happiness for her engagement. "Are you sure about this?" Cassidy Elizabeth had asked. "Marriage is a serious commitment. I just don't want you rushing into something you'll regret." The wedding planning became a battleground. Elizabeth pushed for an extravagant ceremony at Boston's historic Trinity Church with hundreds of guests from their social circle. Cassidy and Jason preferred a smaller, more intimate celebration that reflected their personalities. Each disagreement widened the growing rift between mother and daughter. "If you won't let me help plan the wedding properly, then perhaps we should step back entirely," Elizabeth had declared during a particularly heated argument about the guest list. Cassidy hadn't taken the threat seriously until the RSVP deadline passed without a response from her parents. Her calls went straight to voicemail. Her texts received only brief, non-committal replies. 2 weeks before the wedding, she drove to her childhood home determined to resolve the situation. Elizabeth opened the door but didn't invite her in. "We've decided not to attend," she said flatly. "If you're determined to make this mistake, you'll have to do it without our blessing." Thomas stood silently behind his wife, his expression unreadable. When Cassidy looked to him for support, he simply turned and walked away, leaving his only daughter crying on the doorstep. The wedding proceeded without her parents. Jason's family embraced Cassidy wholeheartedly, but the empty seats in the front row served as a painful reminder of her parents' absence. What should have been the happiest day of her life was tainted by their rejection. After the honeymoon, Cassidy made one final attempt at reconciliation, sending her parents photos from the wedding with a heartfelt letter. The package was returned unopened with address unknown scrawled across the envelope, a deliberate lie that communicated everything Cassidy needed to know about where she stood with her family. The 6 years following her wedding became known to Cassidy as the silent years. Each holiday brought a fresh wave of grief as she confronted the reality of her family's absence. The first Thanksgiving without them, Cassidy found herself crying in Jason's arms, mourning not just the present loss but the idealized family that had never truly existed. "They'll come around," Jason reassured her, though his tone lacked conviction. "They're missing out on knowing an incredible woman." Cassidy and Jason built their careers methodically, pouring themselves into work partly as a distraction from the family-shaped hole in their lives. The tech startup where Cassidy worked was acquired by a major corporation, resulting in a substantial windfall from her stock options. Meanwhile, Jason's innovations in software development earned him recognition and rapid promotion. Financial success came faster than either had anticipated, but Cassidy found that money did little to fill the void left by her parents' rejection. 3 years into their marriage, they relocated to San Francisco for a promising opportunity with a leading tech firm. The move across the country finalized what Cassidy already knew: she and her parents now lived in entirely separate worlds. She had stopped checking their social media accounts, tired of seeing posts about community events and family gatherings that deliberately excluded her. The last update she'd seen was her mother posing with Robert Whitman's son and his new bride, the clear message being that this was the union Elizabeth had wanted for her daughter. In San Francisco, Cassidy and Jason flourished professionally. Their combined income allowed them to purchase a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood. Cassidy was promoted to Director of Product Development, overseeing a team of 30 employees. Jason became Chief Technology Officer at his company. Their financial success exceeded anything they had imagined, but Cassidy never flaunted their wealth, a reaction against her mother's materialistic values. On rare occasions, Cassidy would receive secondhand news about her parents through mutual acquaintances who were unaware of the estrangement. She learned that her father had retired early due to health concerns, and that her mother had expanded her piano teaching into a small music school. These snippets of information always left Cassidy with conflicting emotions: concern for her father's well-being, resentment toward her mother's continuing success, and grief for the relationship that should have been. During the 4th year of silence, Cassidy and Jason began discussing starting a family of their own. The prospect of becoming a mother forced Cassidy to confront her unresolved feelings about her parents. "I'm terrified of making the same mistakes," she confessed to her therapist, Dr. Rivera. "What if conditional love is the only kind I know how to give?" Dr. Rivera helped Cassidy understand that her awareness of the problem was already a significant step toward breaking the cycle. "You recognize the damage conditional love causes," she explained. "That understanding will guide your parenting choices." When Cassidy discovered she was pregnant, she faced the painful decision of whether to inform her parents they would soon become grandparents. After much deliberation, she sent a brief factual email announcing the pregnancy and the due date. No response came. Their daughter Eliza was born in spring, a beautiful, healthy baby who instantly became the center of their world. Cassidy ordered a birth announcement card to be sent to her parents, including a photo of the newborn. The card was not returned this time, but no acknowledgement ever came. The silence continued even for an innocent grandchild who had done nothing to deserve rejection. "She has your eyes," Jason remarked one evening, as they watched their daughter sleep. "Let's hope that's all she inherited from my side," Cassidy replied bitterly. As Eliza grew into a toddler, Cassidy found herself healing through motherhood. She made conscious decisions each day to parent differently than Elizabeth had, celebrating effort over perfection, expressing unconditional love, and respecting Eliza's emerging personality. Jason's parents visited regularly from Michigan, embracing their role as grandparents with enthusiasm. Their presence highlighted the absence of Cassidy's parents but also demonstrated what healthy family relationships could look like. 5 years into the estrangement, Cassidy received a friend request on Facebook from her cousin Megan, Elizabeth's niece. After accepting, she gained visibility into family events she had been excluded from: holiday gatherings, her father's retirement party, her mother's music school recitals. The photos revealed an uncomfortable truth: her parents had simply continued their lives without her, filling the space she once occupied with other relationships and activities. "They look happy," she told Jason one night after scrolling through Megan's photos. "Like they don't even miss me. Or they've become experts at pretending," Jason suggested. People who can cut off their only child usually aren't as happy as they appear in carefully staged photos. Through Megan, Cassidy learned that her parents had begun complaining about financial difficulties. Thomas's health issues had resulted in significant medical bills, and Elizabeth's music school was struggling to compete with newer, trendier arts programs. The comfortable lifestyle they had once enjoyed was apparently becoming harder to maintain. This information stirred complicated feelings in Cassidy. Part of her felt a vindictive satisfaction. They had valued status and financial security over their daughter's happiness, and now those very things were slipping away. Another part felt genuine concern for her aging parents facing difficulties. The largest part, however, felt nothing at all, a numbness that had developed as a protective mechanism over years of rejection. By the 6th year of silence, Cassidy had built a life that no longer included space for her parents' approval. Her identity as a successful executive, loving wife and devoted mother stood independent of her role as a daughter. She had stopped expecting reconciliation and had made peace with the permanent nature of the estrangement. "I've accepted that some relationships can't be fixed," she told Dr. Rivera during their final therapy session. "And that's okay. I'm enough without their validation." The 6th anniversary of her wedding passed quietly. Cassidy and Jason celebrated with a romantic dinner at home after putting Eliza to bed, reminiscing about their journey together and planning for the future. Neither mentioned the conspicuous absence of her parents, a topic that had gradually faded from their conversations over the years. 2 days later, Cassidy's team delivered a breakthrough that secured a major client, resulting in an unexpected bonus. Jason had recently received a substantial promotion as well, putting their combined annual income well into the 7 figures. After years of practical financial decisions, investing wisely, living below their means despite their growing wealth, they decided it was time for one significant indulgence. "You've been eyeing that Tesla for months," Jason said, pulling up the configuration website one evening. "The new Model S Plaid. Let's do it." Cassidy hesitated. Growing up, Elizabeth had instilled in her that displays of wealth were vulgar unless they served to enhance social status. But Cassidy had worked hard to unlearn her mother's materialistic values. "You know what, you're right," she finally said. "I want it in midnight silver metallic." 3 weeks later, Cassidy stood in the Tesla dealership taking delivery of her new $120,000 electric vehicle. The salesperson walked her through the features, explaining the unprecedented acceleration, the advanced autopilot capabilities, and the sleek, minimalist interior. Despite herself, Cassidy felt a surge of pride as she sat behind the wheel admiring the massive touchscreen and premium finishes. "This car represents more than just a luxury purchase," she told Jason that evening. "It's evidence that we've built something meaningful together despite everything." Jason snapped a photo of Cassidy leaning against her new Tesla, her smile genuine and relaxed. Without thinking much about it, she posted the image on Facebook with a simple caption, "New chapter, new ride." Sometimes you have to celebrate your own victories. The post received the usual likes and comments from friends and colleagues. Cassidy noticed her cousin Megan had reacted with a wow emoji but thought nothing of it. She went about her week enjoying her new vehicle and the sense of accomplishment it represented. 4 days after posting the photo, Cassidy was in a meeting when her phone vibrated with an incoming call. Glancing down, she froze. The name Mom appeared on the screen, a contact she had kept but never expected to see again. The meeting continued around her, but Cassidy heard nothing as she stared at the phone until the call went to voicemail. No message was left. 15 minutes later, her phone vibrated again with a text from the same number. "Cassidy, please call me when you have a moment. It's important. Mom." The formal signature, as if Cassidy might have forgotten who Mom was after 6 years of silence, struck her as both comical and infuriating. She showed the text to Jason when she got home that evening. "Well, that's quite a coincidence," he remarked, his tone heavy with sarcasm. 6 years of nothing and suddenly it's important to talk after you post about your Tesla. "You think that's what triggered this?" Cassidy asked, though the answer seemed obvious. "What else has changed? We've had career achievements, bought a house, had a child." No response. "You buy an expensive car and your phone rings within days." Cassidy didn't return the call that night, or the next. The text message sat unanswered as she processed her feelings. Anger came first, hot and immediate, then curiosity about what her mother could possibly want after all this time. Finally, a dangerous flicker of hope that perhaps this could be the beginning of reconciliation. 3 days after the initial call, Elizabeth tried again. This time Cassidy answered, her heart pounding as she said, "Hello, Mother." A brief silence followed, then Elizabeth's voice. Older but unmistakable. "Cassidy, darling. It's so good to hear your voice." The fake warmth in her tone made Cassidy's skin crawl. There was no acknowledgement of the 6-year estrangement, no apology for missing her wedding, no questions about her granddaughter. Instead, Elizabeth launched into pleasant small talk as if they had spoken last week. "I saw your post about your new Tesla. It looks absolutely stunning. You must be doing very well for yourself." "We are," Cassidy replied neutrally. "Jason and I both enjoy our work." "That's wonderful, dear." "Your father and I are so proud." The casual claim of pride after years of silence pushed Cassidy to her breaking point. "Are you? That's interesting considering you haven't spoken to me since you refused to attend my wedding. You've never even acknowledged your granddaughter's existence." Elizabeth sighed dramatically. "Water under the bridge, surely. Families have disagreements, but in the end, blood is thicker than water." "What do you want, Mother?" Cassidy asked directly. Another pause. "Well, since you ask, your father and I have hit a rough patch financially. His medical bills have been substantial and my music school isn't bringing in what it used to. We're at risk of losing the house." And there it was. The real reason for the call. Not concern for her daughter's life, not regret for missed years, but financial need. The Tesla photo had been perfectly timed from Elizabeth's perspective. Evidence that her estranged daughter had money to spare. "I'm sorry to hear about Dad's health issues," Cassidy said, meaning it despite everything. "But I'm not sure why you're telling me this after 6 years of silence." "We're family, Cassidy," Elizabeth said, her voice taking on a familiar, manipulative tone. "Family helps family in times of need. We only need enough to catch up on the mortgage and medical bills. 70,000 would cover everything. I wouldn't ask if it weren't absolutely necessary." Cassidy nearly laughed at the audacity. Let me get this straight. You disowned me for marrying the man I love, returned my wedding photos, ignored the birth of your grandchild, and now you're asking me for $70,000 because you saw I bought a Tesla. Don't be dramatic, dear. We never disowned you. We simply needed space. 6 years of space, Cassidy corrected, during which you made no attempt to contact me until you needed money. Elizabeth's tone chilled. I see you've become quite cold. This isn't how we raised you to behave toward family. No, you raised me to understand that love is conditional and can be withdrawn at any moment. That's a lesson I won't be passing on to my daughter. You have a child? Elizabeth asked, genuine surprise in her voice. Yes, Eliza. She's 3. I sent you birth announcements, but I guess those got lost like my wedding photos. Elizabeth cleared her throat. Well, that's wonderful news. I'm a grandmother. All the more reason for us to put the past behind us. Family should be together, especially when there's a little one involved. The transparent attempt to use Eliza as leverage made Cassidy's decision clear. I need to go, Mother. I have a family dinner to prepare. But what about our situation, Cassidy? We could lose everything. I'll think about it, Cassidy replied, knowing already what her answer would be. Goodbye, Mother. She ended the call and sat in silence, processing what had just happened. 6 years of pain distilled into a 5-minute conversation that confirmed every suspicion she'd had about her parents' conditional love. The Tesla hadn't just been a luxury purchase. It had inadvertently become a truth serum, revealing exactly where she stood with her family. The conversation with her mother left Cassidy shaking with rage and a profound sense of validation. Every suspicion she'd harbored about her parents' true character had been confirmed in that brief exchange. Elizabeth hadn't asked about her life, her career achievements, or shown genuine interest in her grandchild. The focus had been entirely on the Tesla, the symbol of wealth, and how that wealth might benefit them. That night, after putting Eliza to bed, Cassidy poured a glass of wine and sat on the deck overlooking San Francisco's glittering skyline. Jason joined her, sitting silently until she was ready to talk. $70,000, she finally said, swirling the wine in her glass. That's the price tag my mother has put on 6 years of abandonment. Jason reached for her hand. What are you thinking of doing? Cassidy turned to face him, her expression resolute. I'm going to go see them. In person. I need to look them in the eyes when I give them my answer. Are you sure that's a good idea? Jason asked, concern evident in his voice. They've hurt you enough already. This isn't about giving them another chance to hurt me, Cassidy explained. It's about finally closing this chapter on my terms. I've spent 6 years wondering if I was somehow to blame, if I could have done something differently. Now I know with absolute certainty that their love was always conditional. The decision made, Cassidy booked a flight to Boston for the following week. She arranged for Jason's parents to come stay with Eliza, not wanting to expose her daughter to the potential toxicity of the encounter. The night before her departure, she found herself standing in Eliza's doorway watching her daughter sleep. I promise I'll never make you earn my love, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. You'll never have to wonder where you stand with me. The flight to Boston gave Cassidy time to reflect on what she wanted from this confrontation. Reconciliation no longer seemed possible or even desirable. What she sought now was closure, the ability to walk away knowing she had faced the situation with integrity rather than avoiding it as her parents had done. Her rental car pulled into the familiar driveway of her childhood home. The house looked smaller than she remembered, the once immaculate garden showing signs of neglect. For a moment Cassidy sat in the car, gathering her courage. Then she approached the door and knocked firmly. Thomas opened it, his appearance shocking Cassidy into momentary silence. Her father had aged dramatically in 6 years, his frame thinner, his once dark hair now completely gray. Recognition flickered in his eyes, followed quickly by embarrassment. Cassidy, he said, his voice rougher than she remembered. You should have called first. Like you called before deciding not to attend my wedding, she countered, her practiced calm already slipping. He stepped back, allowing her to enter the house. The interior was largely unchanged. The same formal furniture, the same family photos on the wall. Cassidy noticed with a jolt that more recent photos had been added to the collection, but none included her or her family. It was as if her life had been edited out of the family narrative. Elizabeth emerged from the kitchen, her face lighting up with calculated warmth. "Cassidy, darling. What a wonderful surprise! If we'd known you were coming, I would have prepared your favorite meal." The artificial sweetness turned Cassidy's stomach. "This isn't a social visit, Mother. You called me asking for money, and I came to give you my answer in person." Elizabeth's smile faltered slightly before returning with increased brilliance. "Well, of course we have much to discuss. But surely we can catch up first. Tell us about your life in California. And this grandchild you mentioned. Eliza, was it?" "Now you're interested in Eliza?" Cassidy asked, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. "You've had 3 years to know her, and suddenly she matters because you think I might give you money." Thomas cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should all sit down." They moved to the living room, taking their customary seats as if the last 6 years hadn't happened. The familiarity of the setting contrasted sharply with the tension filling the room. "Your mother told me about your new Tesla," Thomas began awkwardly. "Very impressive. The electric vehicle market is certainly booming." "Dad, please," Cassidy interrupted. "Let's not pretend this is a normal family conversation. You both made it very clear where I stand when you refused to attend my wedding. You reinforced that message when you returned my wedding photos and ignored the birth of your granddaughter." Elizabeth's expression hardened. "We were hurt, Cassidy. You chose that man over your family's wishes." "I chose love over control," Cassidy corrected. "I chose my happiness over your social aspirations. And for that you decided I no longer deserved to be your daughter." "That's not fair," Thomas protested weakly. "We never stopped considering you our daughter." "Really? Because daughters typically get invited to holiday gatherings. They receive birthday calls. Their children get acknowledged." Cassidy pulled out her phone, bringing up Megan's Facebook page. "According to these photos, you've had plenty of family events over the years." "I wasn't included in any of them." Elizabeth waved dismissively. "Social media doesn't show the full picture. We've had our struggles too, especially lately. Yes, the financial difficulties that suddenly made me worth contacting," Cassidy noted. Convenient timing after seeing my Tesla post. "Is that why you came?" "To throw our situation in our faces." Elizabeth's voice took on the injured tone Cassidy remembered from childhood, the signal that her mother was positioning herself as the victim. "No. I came to understand exactly what happened, and now I do. It was never about Jason personally. It was about control. When I made a decision you couldn't control, you punished me by withdrawing your love. You thought eventually I'd come crawling back, apologizing for my independence." Thomas looked down, unable to meet her gaze. Elizabeth's expression confirmed the accuracy of Cassidy's assessment. "And now," Cassidy continued, "you're in financial trouble, and suddenly family matters again." "Suddenly blood is thicker than water. We've made mistakes," Thomas admitted quietly. "But we're still your parents." "Biologically, yes. But parents do more than provide DNA. They support, they love unconditionally, they show up for the important moments." Cassidy looked around the room at the family photos. "You've created a narrative here that I don't exist. You've had 6 years to reach out and you chose not to until you needed something from me." Elizabeth leaned forward, her strategy shifting. "Whatever mistakes we've made, we're still family. And family helps family in times of need. Surely your Christian upbringing taught you forgiveness." The manipulation was so transparent that Cassidy almost laughed. "I've actually spent years in therapy unpacking my Christian upbringing, Mother. I've learned a lot about forgiveness. True forgiveness doesn't require me to subject myself to more hurt from unrepentant people. So you're refusing to help? Elizabeth's tone sharpened. After all we sacrificed for you. I haven't said that yet, Cassidy replied calmly. But I want to be clear about something first. You seem to believe you're entitled to my assistance because we share DNA. I disagree. Any help I provide would be an act of compassion, not obligation. Thomas looked up hopefully. Does that mean you'll consider helping with the mortgage and medical bills? Cassidy reached into her bag and removed an envelope. I've done more than consider it. I've made a decision. Friends watching this story, I know you must be wondering what was in that envelope. The tension in that moment was almost unbearable. Facing the parents who had abandoned me at my most important life events only to reach out when they saw signs of wealth. Before I reveal what happened next, I'd love to know if you've ever faced a similar family betrayal. Hit that like button if you believe karma eventually comes around, and subscribe to see how this confrontation ends. The next part of this story contains the choice I made that would permanently alter our family dynamic. Elizabeth eyed the envelope with poorly disguised anticipation. Her fingers twitched slightly, eager to reach for what she assumed was a check that would solve all their financial problems. Thomas maintained a more reserved expression, but his gaze was similarly fixed on the envelope in Cassidy's hand. Before I give you this, Cassidy said, holding the envelope just out of reach, I want to be completely clear about something. After today, we are done. Whatever relationship we might have rebuilt is no longer possible after your call about the Tesla. You showed your true priorities. Elizabeth's face tightened. That's a rather dramatic conclusion, don't you think? Families have disagreements and reconcile all the time. This wasn't a disagreement, Mother. This was abandonment followed by opportunism. Cassidy's voice remained steady. You disowned me for marrying the man I love, ignored your granddaughter's existence, and then contacted me only when you saw financial benefit in doing so. We made mistakes, Thomas interjected, his voice uncharacteristically firm. But we're still your parents. Being a parent is more than a biological fact, Cassidy replied. It's an ongoing commitment. When Eliza was born, I promised her I would always be there for her, not just when it was convenient or beneficial to me. Elizabeth sighed dramatically. If you've come all this way just to lecture us, perhaps I came to give you this, Cassidy interrupted, finally extending the envelope. And to see your faces when you open it. Thomas took the envelope with trembling hands. Elizabeth leaned closer as he carefully broke the seal and removed not a check but a collection of papers. Their expressions shifted from anticipation to confusion as they examined the contents. I don't understand, Elizabeth said, flipping through the documents. What is this? That's proof that I've paid off Dad's outstanding medical bills, Cassidy explained calmly. All $43, 250 of them. I called the hospital billing department yesterday and settled everything. Thomas looked up in shock. You paid my medical bills? Yes, Cassidy confirmed. Not because you deserved it, but because I refuse to be the person who lets her father suffer when she has the means to help. That's the difference between us, you see. I won't withhold assistance out of spite, even when it would be justified. Elizabeth shuffled through the papers again, clearly searching for something more. But what about the mortgage? We're 3 months behind, and the bank has started foreclosure proceedings. I'm aware, Cassidy said. The second document is confirmation that I've brought your mortgage current and paid the penalties. The final paper is a cashier's check for $5,000 to help with immediate expenses. Her parents stared at her in disbelief. Thomas's eyes filled with tears while Elizabeth appeared stunned into temporary silence, a rarity that Cassidy might have savored under different circumstances. Why would you do this? Thomas finally asked. After everything. Not for the reasons you might think, Cassidy answered honestly. I'm not doing it to buy your love or approval. I've learned those aren't available to me regardless of what I do. I'm not doing it to reconcile. That bridge is thoroughly burned. I'm doing it because this is who I am, who I've chosen to be, despite your conditional love. She stood up, gathering her purse. I've also arranged for a financial advisor to contact you next week. She specializes in retirement planning and medical cost management. Her services for the first year are paid for. What you do with that resource is entirely up to you. You're leaving. Just like that, Elizabeth had recovered her voice, though it lacked its usual commanding tone. Yes. My flight back to San Francisco leaves tonight. Cassidy moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. I've set up a college fund for Eliza. If you ever decide you want to know your granddaughter, you can contribute to it. Not that she needs the money. Jason and I have that covered. But it would be a meaningful gesture. Something more substantial than suddenly showing interest when it benefits you. Elizabeth stood abruptly. This is absurd. You can't just walk in here, throw money at our problems, and walk away feeling superior. I don't feel superior, Mother. I feel sad. Sad that you and Dad missed my wedding. Sad that you've never met your amazing granddaughter. Sad that money matters more to you than relationship. Cassidy met her mother's gaze steadily. But most of all, I feel free. Free from waiting for your approval, free from wondering if I could have done something differently. Thomas rose shakily to his feet. Cassidy, please, don't leave like this. We can start over. No, Dad, we can't. Not after everything. But you and Mom can start over with each other without the financial stress. Consider it a parting gift. She reached for the door handle. Goodbye. Elizabeth moved forward suddenly. And what are we supposed to tell people, that our daughter swooped in with her tech money, paid our bills, and then abandoned us? Cassidy turned back, a sad smile on her face. Tell them whatever you want. You've been creating narratives about me for years anyway. Just know that I'll be telling Eliza the truth when she's old enough to understand that sometimes even family can fail you, but that doesn't mean you have to fail them in return. With that, she walked out the door, leaving her parents standing in the entryway of their home, financially secure but emotionally bankrupt. As she drove away, Cassidy felt a complex mixture of emotions: grief for the relationship that would never be healed, relief at having finally closed this chapter, and a surprising sense of peace. She had faced her parents on her terms and responded to their manipulation with integrity rather than vengeance. The flight back to San Francisco gave her time to process the encounter. She had expected to feel angry or vindicated, but instead found herself feeling strangely light, as if she had put down a heavy burden she'd been carrying for years. By choosing compassion over revenge, she had broken free from the cycle of conditional love that had defined her childhood. Jason and Eliza were waiting at the airport when she arrived. Eliza holding a handmade sign that read, "Welcome home, Mommy," in colorful crayon letters. As she embraced them both, Cassidy knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right decision. "How did it go?" Jason asked quietly as they walked to the car, Eliza skipping ahead. "Exactly as it needed to," Cassidy replied. "I helped them because I could not, because they deserved it. And then I said goodbye. For good." Jason's expression was concerned but supportive. "For now at least. Maybe forever." The door isn't completely closed, but they'd have to take meaningful steps to walk through it. Cassidy watched Eliza, her heart full. "I realized something important today. The family we create is more important than the family we're born into." That evening, as they settled back into their home, Cassidy checked her phone to find 3 missed calls from her mother and a text message. "We need to talk about what happened today. Call me." She deleted the message without responding. Instead, she opened her laptop and began typing an email to her financial advisor, instructing him to set up a trust for Eliza that would mature when she turned 25. Unlike the conditional support she had received, this would be Eliza's regardless of her life choices, a financial safety net with no strings attached. 2 months passed without communication from Cassidy's parents. She maintained her resolve, focusing on her family and career rather than dwelling on the past. Jason had been supportive throughout, never questioning her decision to help her parents financially while maintaining emotional boundaries. "You did something they never could," he told her one evening as they watched Eliza playing in the backyard. "You gave without expecting anything in return." The fall quarter at her company brought new challenges as Cassidy's team launched an innovative product that quickly gained market traction. The success led to her promotion to Vice President of Innovation, a role that further cemented her professional reputation and increased their financial security. Through it all, she remained grounded, remembering the lessons she'd learned about what truly mattered in life. One Sunday afternoon, while sorting through the mail, Cassidy noticed an envelope with her mother's distinctive handwriting. For a moment she considered throwing it away unopened, but curiosity prevailed. Inside was a formal thank you note, the kind Elizabeth had always insisted upon for gifts, acknowledging the payment of medical bills and mortgage arrears. The message was polite but distant, with no mention of reconciliation or Eliza. It was exactly what Cassidy had expected, an acknowledgement of the financial transaction without emotional engagement. What surprised her was a separate note from her father included in the same envelope, but clearly written without Elizabeth's knowledge. His handwriting was shakier than she remembered, the words sometimes trailing off at the ends of lines. "Dear Cassidy," it began. "I've started and torn up this letter a dozen times. There's no adequate way to apologize for 6 years of silence, for missing your wedding, for never meeting my granddaughter. Your mother doesn't know I'm writing this. She believes we were justified in our actions, but I've come to see things differently." Thomas explained that his health crisis, a series of minor strokes followed by a more serious cardiac event, had forced him to reevaluate his priorities. "Facing mortality has a way of clarifying what matters," he wrote. "I was wrong to stand by while your mother cut you out of our lives. I was wrong to prioritize her approval over my relationship with my only child. I won't ask for forgiveness I haven't earned, but I wanted you to know that I recognize my failings." The letter concluded with a request, not for money or even reconciliation, but for a photo of Eliza. "I understand if you refuse, but I'd like to know what my granddaughter looks like, even if I never have the privilege of meeting her." Cassidy sat with the letter for days, unsure how to respond. Her therapist advised caution. "People rarely change fundamentally," Dr. Rivera warned. "Consider whether limited contact with your father alone might be possible without reopening old wounds." After careful consideration, Cassidy sent a brief email to her father's personal address, which he had included in the letter. She attached a recent photo of Eliza at the park but made no promises about future contact. "She has your smile," was all Cassidy wrote in the message. Thomas responded within hours, thanking her for the photo and confirming that Elizabeth remained unaware of their communication. "She's beautiful," he wrote of Eliza. "I regret every day that I've missed with her." Over the following weeks, a cautious exchange developed between Cassidy and her father. Thomas shared updates about his health, which was slowly improving, and asked thoughtful questions about Eliza's personality and interests. He never pressured Cassidy for more contact or financial assistance, seeming genuinely content with the limited connection she was willing to offer. 3 months after her visit to Boston, Cassidy received a more troubling email from Thomas. "Your mother found our correspondence," he wrote. "She's insisting we invite you all for Christmas, saying it's time to reunite the family. I fear her motives aren't entirely pure. Thought you should know." The transparency of this warning confirmed what Cassidy had begun to suspect, that her father was genuinely attempting to change while her mother remained focused on appearances and potential advantages. Elizabeth's sudden interest in reunion coincided with Cassidy's promotion, which had been mentioned in an industry publication Thomas had forwarded to her. Cassidy discussed the situation with Jason that evening after Eliza was asleep. "What do you think she's after now?" she asked. "We've already paid their debts. Social currency, probably," Jason suggested. "Your mother seems to value status above all else. Having a successful daughter and grandchild to show off would boost her standing in the community, especially after your gesture of financial rescue likely became known. So nothing's really changed, Cassidy sighed. With your mother, probably not, but your father seems to be making a genuine effort. Jason hesitated before adding, it might be worth considering a limited visit, not for Elizabeth's benefit but for Thomas and Eliza. She deserves a chance to know at least one grandparent from your side, and he may not have many years left. Cassidy wrestled with the decision for weeks. Eventually she agreed to a brief visit, a single dinner at a restaurant in Boston during a business trip she had scheduled. She made it clear to Thomas that this was not a full reconciliation, and that Elizabeth would need to demonstrate significant changes in attitude before Cassidy would consider introducing Eliza to her grandparents. The dinner was as awkward as Cassidy had anticipated. Elizabeth oscillated between excessive charm and barely concealed resentment, while Thomas attempted to maintain peace between the two strong-willed women. The conversation remained superficial until coffee was served, when Elizabeth finally addressed the elephant in the room. I don't understand why you're being so difficult about letting us meet Eliza, she said, her tone accusatory. We're her grandparents. We have rights. You have no rights, Cassidy corrected calmly. You have potential privileges that you haven't earned. Grandparenting isn't an entitlement. It's a relationship that requires trust. You've demonstrated repeatedly that you can't be trusted with vulnerable relationships. That's absurd, Elizabeth bristled. We raised you, didn't we? Yes, and you taught me exactly what kind of parent and grandparent I don't want to be. Cassidy maintained eye contact with her mother. You taught me that love shouldn't be conditional, that support shouldn't be transactional, and that family isn't about control or status. Thomas intervened before Elizabeth could respond. She's right, Liz. We've made serious mistakes. If we want a relationship with Cassidy and Eliza, we need to earn it on their terms, not demand it on ours. Elizabeth stared at her husband in shock. This direct contradiction of her position was unprecedented in their marriage. The remainder of the dinner passed in tense silence, and Cassidy left with no promises of further contact. The following day, Thomas called to apologize for Elizabeth's behavior. She hasn't changed, he admitted. But I have, and I'm working on being independent from her influence for the first time in our marriage. The financial advisor you arranged has been helping me secure my own future regardless of what happens between us. This revelation, that her father was preparing for potential separation from her mother, surprised Cassidy. She had always viewed her parents as an inseparable unit, with her father as the passive partner in the relationship. The possibility that Thomas might forge his own path had never occurred to her. 6 months after paying her parents' debts, Cassidy received news that her father had moved out of the family home and into a small apartment nearby. He was filing for divorce after 40 years of marriage, a decision that sent shockwaves through their social circle. Elizabeth's reaction was predictably focused on the perceived humiliation rather than the failed relationship, and she began telling friends that Thomas was experiencing cognitive decline due to his medical issues. When Cassidy called her father to check on him, she found him more at peace than she had ever known him to be. I should have done this decades ago, he told her. But I was afraid of being alone, of disappointing others, of change. Watching you stand your ground with such dignity showed me it was possible to choose a different path even at my age. As Thomas established his independence, his relationship with Cassidy gradually strengthened. Video calls became regular events, allowing him to interact with Eliza virtually. For her 4th birthday, he flew to San Francisco for a short visit, his first time meeting his granddaughter in person. The connection between them was immediate and genuine, with Eliza instinctively warming to his gentle nature. Elizabeth, meanwhile, refused all contact after the divorce filing, sending a scathing email accusing Cassidy of turning Thomas against her. Rather than engaging with these accusations, Cassidy simply blocked her mother's email address and phone number, finally closing that door completely. On the first anniversary of her confrontation with her parents, Cassidy received a package from Thomas containing her mother's piano, the cherished instrument Elizabeth had used to teach generations of students. A note explained that Elizabeth had been forced to sell her music school due to declining enrollment and financial mismanagement. She had intended to sell the piano as well, but Thomas had purchased it specifically to give to Eliza. "Some family legacies are worth preserving," he wrote. "Others are better left behind. I hope Eliza can create new, happier memories with this instrument than the ones associated with it from your childhood." Cassidy ran her fingers over the familiar keys, memories of her mother's critical voice during practice sessions flooding back. Then she watched as Eliza climbed onto the bench, delighted by the sounds she could create. In that moment, Cassidy saw the perfect metaphor for her journey, taking something from a painful past and transforming it into a source of joy for the future. 1 year later, Cassidy stood in the driveway of her San Francisco home, watching as her father helped Eliza climb into her car seat. Thomas had relocated to California 6 months earlier, renting an apartment just 20 minutes away. At 70, he had embraced this new chapter of his life with unexpected enthusiasm, volunteering at a local hospital and developing a close relationship with his granddaughter. Elizabeth remained in Boston alone in the house Cassidy had saved from foreclosure. According to mutual acquaintances, she had rewritten the narrative of the family fracture, casting herself as the victim of an ungrateful daughter and disloyal husband. Few who knew Elizabeth well were surprised by this version of events. As Cassidy slid into the driver's seat of her Tesla, she felt a sense of completion that had eluded her for years. The vehicle that had inadvertently triggered her mother's reappearance now symbolized something entirely different. Not material success, but the journey toward authentic family bonds based on love rather than obligation. "Ready for ice cream sunshine?" she asked Eliza, meeting her daughter's eyes in the rearview mirror. "Yes," Eliza cheered. "Can Grandpa have chocolate like me?" "Grandpa can have whatever flavor he wants," Cassidy laughed, exchanging a warm glance with Thomas. The word Grandpa still felt new and precious. A title earned through genuine effort rather than biological entitlement. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying a family redefined by choice rather than convention. Cassidy realized that her parents' call about the Tesla hadn't been the disaster she'd initially thought. It had been the catalyst for truth healing and ultimately freedom. What's your experience with family karma? Has justice found its way into your family dynamics? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this tale of family betrayal and ultimate redemption resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories with unexpected endings. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. Remember that sometimes the families we choose are more valuable than the ones we're born into. Stay strong, stay authentic, and I'll see you in the next video.